Are you targeting the right readers? This episode of DIY Author, a conversation about narrowing down to your perfect niche audience. We also talk about writing books faster with an outline and broadcasting on Periscope.
In the end, we really do need to serve a specific audience. If you try to reach everyone, you'll reach no one.
This is episode 32 of DIY Author. You're an author. Maybe you're taking the traditional route. Maybe you've chosen an independent path. Or maybe you want the best of both worlds. Wherever you want to go as a writer, DIY Author is here to help you on your journey with advice, encouragement, and practical tips. Because do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone. Welcome to another episode of DIY Author, your source for interviews with writers, editors, marketers, and publishing professionals who want to help you get results and advance your author career. I'm Chris Well. My guest this episode is Shelley Hitz of Author Audience Academy. Shelley is an author coach. She is the author of several books, including How to Write a Book from Outline to Finish Line, and she is also a regular broadcaster on Periscope. In this interview, we discuss the importance of targeting your niche, writing your book faster with an outline, and building an audience through broadcasting on Periscope. A little side note, we actually had to do this interview 4 different times. What you're about to hear is some of the third try and some of the fourth try. Just in case there's any irregularity that makes you say, "What's that?" That's what's going on. We had some technical difficulties, but it's still a great conversation, great content, some great advice from Shelley Hitz. Take a listen. And now I'm speaking with Shelley Hitz. She is an author. She's an author coach. She is, I guess, the captain of Author Audience Academy. She is a podcaster. She is a Periscoper broadcaster. Shelley, welcome to DIY Author.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to be here.
Let's start with your big brand is Author Audience Academy, and we talked a little bit before the interview, but talk me through it again. It's a school, it's a course, but it is also a community. It is more than that. So how do you think of it when you think of Author Audience Academy?
Yeah, I launched Author Audience Academy earlier this year, and I wanted a complete system for an author who wants to not only publish books, but actually reach their audience and then also be able to earn income. And I teach the exact system I've used to earn a full-time income online. So it's not just with books, it's also with products and speaking and services. And so I cover everything in my program, but you can start wherever you want. Most people start with publishing a book. And Author Audience Academy, I thought it was going to be a standalone product, but I am a connector. I love interacting with people. I love creating community. And I realized that it would really serve my customers better if they could get coaching from me. So Author Audience Academy is a membership. It's either monthly or yearly, and you get content. So you get all my training, but then you get coaching from me in the forums. And you get community because you get to interact with all the other authors in our community. And, it really has provided something very special. I just really haven't had anything like this. I've been coaching authors since 2010, and this is really a sweet spot for not only me and my talents and my gifts, but also it's really been effective to help my members get results.
Your business specializes in helping ministers, Christian authors, religious authors. How much of that is about the kind of people that would be in your community versus how much of that is you are bringing some kind of, from a market perspective, you're bringing a specific market in mind to the authors?
Yeah, so I have been helping authors since 2010. I published my first book in 2008. But I was very general in my brand, and I have another website, trainingauthors.com, very, very general, and it can help, traditionally published, independently published, self-published, and it's fiction, nonfiction, and it's just very general. And I was realizing I really needed to narrow my target audience. It's what I teach, it's what I teach authors. And I had not actually done it myself with my author brand. And so what I realized is that my expertise is nonfiction books. I have currently active on Amazon over 35, but I've published probably over 50, written and published over 50 nonfiction books. So that's really my sweet spot with nonfiction or fiction is nonfiction. And then I realized me as a person, my faith is integral in everything I do. And that's just who I am. And I had a coach I was working with, and she said, Shelley, what if you could open your webinars in prayer? What would that feel like to you? And I got chills. And I knew at that moment, I was like, I'm onto something here. I was afraid, though, to narrow my niche because I thought, are there enough Christian entrepreneurs, pastors, ministry leaders that would be willing to pay me? Will this actually, be able to be sustainable and be an income? Because I do need to pay the bills too. And I think I was just concerned that I was going to have too narrow of a niche. But what it's actually done is one of my colleagues gave me an analogy, and it makes so much sense to me. She said, Shelley, you should be like a magnet. One side should really, really, really strongly attract a certain type of person, and the other side should really strongly repel another type of person. And that's exactly what refining my target audience and my branding has done. I'm able to open my free webinars in prayer. Now, some people may immediately log off, and that's okay. But some people are like, wow, that was awesome. She opened in prayer. And as a fellow person of faith, that really is significant to me, and she understands me, and she gets this, and da 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 da. But not only that, she knows the process. There's so many people that teach Kindle publishing. How do I differentiate myself? This is how I'm differentiating myself, and so I'm realizing it is really being effective. And not everyone that comes into my program are of faith or are Christian, and that's okay. But a good majority of my audience and my members are.
And I think there's a really great lesson to stop and focus in on there. Because this, I teach my students. You find your audience. You're not trying to reach the masses. You need to find who is your audience, and that's true for any author, wouldn't you say?
Yes, and that's what I've been teaching that for years and years, but yet I think I was afraid to narrow down because I was afraid I was going to not have a big enough audience. Were there going to be enough people that would pay? But what I realize is that, yeah, there is. And there's a lot of people that are entrepreneurs. They don't call themselves Christian entrepreneurs. You may not even know that they're Christians, but they are, and they're being attracted into my program. And so there's a lot more people out there that I realized. And in the end, we really do need to serve a specific audience. If you try to reach everyone, you'll reach no one. I'm sure you teach that as well. And so it is so important to know your target audience, to know who you're reaching. And I'm getting ready to do my first full day workshop in a church. It's going to be in my local church here in January. And then I was also invited to a church in Atlanta later on in the year, I think in March. So I'm really, really changing to where I'm serving that market, and opportunities are opening up. I just got booked to speak at a Christian editors conference. And, it's amazing what happens when you just finally take that leap and say, okay, I'm going to serve this specific audience. This is who I am. This is the best fit for me, and I'm going to do it.
So now you mentioned you've written, I think you said 50 books or published 50 books. And so a number of those are religious topics, but a number of them are for authors, and they're about the kinds of things we're talking about. They're about building your brand, self-publishing your books. And you have a brand new one, How to Write a Book from Outline to Finish Line, and it is a free book, right?
Yes, that book is a perma-free book. It's a short, quick read, and it is a book that I have on Amazon as a lead generator. So I teach this, to my students because I've been doing it since the early 2012. I have another book that's perma-free. It's called Self-Publishing Books 101. And I've been getting leads. That book probably gets downloaded about 1,000 times a month. And it funnels people into my email list. And then I can continue to grow that relationship with them. Instead of them just reading my book and then going on to something else, they're able to get into my sales funnel. And so this book is similar to that. And, I also have it on my website as a blog post, as a really long blog post. And so there's different ways I'm using that content to bring people into my marketing funnel and to have them, get acquainted with me. But it is free on Amazon and other retailers because I published it through Smashwords. And then it goes out to the other retailers for free. So whatever ebook platform you enjoy, you can find that book and you can download it for free. And my perma-free book markets for me 24/7. And I'm really not doing much after the initial work and the initial marketing.
So, and now the topic of the book, and I would recommend everybody listening or who's reading the transcript to get this book or to find the blog post and read it. It's about shortening the time between having the idea and publishing the book. And you mentioned in the book, I think you said your first book took you, I forgot how many months or years for the first one. And then you said the one just prior to this was 2 weeks or something?
Yeah, so my first book, it was written over the course of a year. And my last book was written and published over the course of a week.
So how personally did you streamline the process?
I really have, just developed a system that I use. And, when you have done something so many times in a row, you get really good at it. And I just noticed, this is just a system that I have in place, and it's what I teach in Author Audience Academy. And one of the keys to really writing quality books fast is having a good outline. When you have a really good outline, you can get that book written fast. One of my members actually said he was able to write his second book in half the time using my outlining strategy than his first book. And it really, really helps you to be more productive and to get more done. And in that book, I share 10 different ways and 10 different tools or strategies you can use to outline your book. And whatever works best for you, use it. Not everyone is going to have, the same personality, the same style. And so that's why I gave 10 different ways to outline your book, because you'll find one that really works for you. Or maybe one day you'll just be like, oh, I've been using mind mapping, but now I just want to be on my whiteboard and just writing out. And so I've used several of them in several different ways. And it's just really getting it out of your brain onto paper and getting that outline done.
I don't remember if we mentioned specifically, the book is targeted toward nonfiction writers. Have you heard from fiction writers who've used any of these principles?
Yeah, there's books out there too on outlining for fiction. And, you have the term pantster, people who fly by the seat of their pants when they write. And some people will never change and they will never try an outline. But if you read, I can't think of who it is right now. I read a book from a fiction author that recommends outlining. And it really, really can help fiction authors as well. And it can help you be more productive. Like I said, I personally am, my experience and my expertise lies in nonfiction books. So that's where I am trying to focus at this time.
You've recently launched a podcast that is a part of your Author Audience brand. In fact, it is the Author Audience podcast. You're just a few episodes in, right?
Yes, I'm excited. I'm doing one episode a week, about 15 to 20 minutes. It's a lot of work, as you know. Now I'm developing my system for my podcast and have my outline, and I'm getting ready to start training my team. So once I have my team in place and trained, and I really know the system that I want to use and the flow and all of that, I know it will go a lot easier, because I'm a speaker, and so speaking comes easier for me than writing, actually. And I know it sounds kind of contradictory, because I'm an author of over 35 books, right now, active on Amazon. But so the podcast is a really fun way for me to be able to speak, to show my ability in speaking, and to be able to teach and offer free content to a lot of people in a different platform. I
I'm on Amazon, I'm on YouTube, I'm on all the social media platforms, but now I'm on iTunes and Stitcher.
With the author audience brand, you have several different points of entry for authors who want your advice. As you're creating these different kinds of things, how much of it is they complement each other versus they are and you mentioned you have all these different places. Are these different audiences that you're building, or do you find that it's people who are, they are following you these different places and it becomes part of this complementary experience?
I think there's overlap. I think there's some people that follow me on Periscope, that listen to my podcast, that watch my YouTube videos, that follow me on Facebook, that see my stuff on Instagram. And then I think there's some people that only see my stuff on LinkedIn, or only see my stuff on iTunes, or only read my books on Kindle, or so forth. But I tell authors, don't feel like you have to do everything, because you really want to focus your energies on one or two social media platforms, one maybe content marketing platform. But I teach all of this stuff, and so I think it's important for me to understand it. So that's why I'm out there on every platform. But for my content marketing, I really think I'm going to focus on the podcast. And then what I'm doing, and it sounds like you do this as well, is I'll have the podcast transcribed. So I'll have that on my blog, and that will be blog content. And then I will also, for most episodes, also have a video form of my podcast on YouTube. So with this one form of content, I'll be able to hit a lot of the major players: blogging, video, and audio. And so I think, I really am going to be focusing on my podcast, and also I'll be repurposing some of my podcast transcripts for my showcase print book that I hope to publish next year for authors. But, there's just so many ways you can use the content once you've created it one time.
Speaking of video and different platforms, Periscope is an app that is owned by Twitter, and it allows people to live stream through the app on their phones. And people watching it can watch. And so you are a broadcaster on Periscope. I'm also trying to do that. So did you jump right into Periscope as soon as you heard about it?
Yeah, I saw one of my colleagues using it, and I got on there, and I knew that video was going to be part of my marketing strategy this year because I'm a speaker. It helps display those speaking skills, but also it's just what I enjoy. And so I got on there, and it was probably 2.5 to 3 months ago. I got on there, and I've been consistently periscoping every day for probably a month and a half now, 6 weeks or so. I'd have to look it up, but I do Periscope daily now. And my last push for Author Audience Academy, I realized 25% of my new members came from Periscope. So it really is an effective means personally for me to be not only delivering content, but to be creating new relationships with potential customers.
There's something about the platform. And so some people that have been doing like live streaming all along are scratching their heads because they're like, well, there's always been live streaming, but there's something about it's on the phone, it's personable, there's a raw reality TV almost. Oh, I don't want to over say that it's raw, but there's something about it that's more engaging than a formal video, it seems like. Am I imagining that?
No, it is. There's something very unique about it. And I love webinars, getting on live webinars, even showing my face on Google Hangouts and doing the PowerPoints and teaching. But there's even something different than a webinar on Periscope. And I did a webinar last night for my Author Audience Academy members, and I had all of these setup things, and I had to make sure I was doing all of these things. And with Periscope, I pretty much just set up my phone in my tripod, make sure it's positioned right, turn on some lights, plug in my microphone, and I go. It's really, really simple. And it's so easy for me to do it because it's just quick, easy, it's on your phone, and it really makes it a great way to connect without all of the tech barriers. A lot of people have barriers for webinars because there's so many little tech things you have to learn. A lot of people have barriers for podcasts because there's so many little things that go into a podcast. You know, and I know. We've even had a few tech issues today trying to record this call. And Periscope's just different in that. And then also it is the real aspect. I just want to tell a funny story. I still laugh when I think about it. I had gotten a proof copy of my book, Procrastination to Publication, and I was going to open it live on Periscope. So I get on Periscope, I go to my front door, I get the package, I'm opening it live on Periscope. And this is the first time I've published so many books. This was the first time CreateSpace sent me the wrong book. So I'm live on Periscope, and they were just like, Shelley, your face was priceless, because I was like, what is this? This isn't my book. But it was so funny, and people actually liked it, because we just laughed and laughed about it. It was some book in Japanese. I couldn't even read it. It was so hilarious. But there you go. I mean, live streaming for you. It's just raw. It's live, and things happen, and it's not perfect. And I think people like that. They realize, okay, this person isn't like this perfectly edited video. This is real life video.
And more people show up for this than for a webinar. I do webinars where I send out emails and we talk to people in social media, and a full room is like 30 people. I went on Periscope yesterday and 95 people watched this demo that I did, a very shaky cam video, how to use Buffer's Pablo tool, and 95 people showed up to watch that.
Awesome.
Live.
Yeah.
So, Periscope somehow, even for just people watching, it seems to take down a lot of the barriers to watching it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Kim Garsh shared a statistic the other day, and I went out and I found it, but they said that every day people consume 40 years of television watching on Periscope. It's something like, I think it's every day. It's something crazy like that. I mean, people are consuming it like crazy, but yet only 1% of people are actually broadcasting regularly like I am. And so I am very, very small minority of people that are broadcasting. So there are 10 million people on Periscope right now that have the app, and only 1% of them are actually actively broadcasting. So when you're broadcasting, you have a huge audience right now, because a lot of people are afraid of live stream broadcasting. And I'm a speaker, and it was intimidating to me at first, and you get the flow, you get used to it, and then you get good at it. But in the beginning, it's like, oh, so a lot of people are not doing it. And so it is a great opportunity if this is a medium for you to connect with your audience.
So people who want to find out about Author Audience Academy, they go to shelleyhitz.com, correct?
Yes, and you can just go to authoraudienceacademy.com if you want to go straight to the sales page of my program. And then if you want to go to my blog, just go to shelleyhitz.com, or authoraudience.com will redirect to it. I decided for my podcast, people may misspell my name, so I decided to use the URL authoraudience.com and just use that as a redirect, that just because it's easier to spell, but they all go to the same place.
Right. Oh, and then for people listening, it's SHELLEYHITZ.
Exactly.
Okay, and so if we go to your website, information about your books, podcast, your speaking, your coaching, and your academy.
Yes, it's all there. And as my brand evolves, I will continue to get things even more streamlined. But just excited to finally launch my podcast, and appreciate you having me on your podcast for this interview. And I hope people will check out the podcast.
Well, Shelley, thank you very much for being on the episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Chris. And thanks for joining in on many of my Periscope episodes. I've seen you hanging out on Periscope too, so that's been fun.
Thank you for joining us this episode. Be sure and catch every episode of DIY Author. We're available in iTunes and Stitcher, and of course we have our own dedicated app. Just go to your favorite app store and search for DIY Author. This is Chris Well saying thanks for listening. I hope you'll join me again. This has been DIY Author. Please visit us online at DIYauthor.com and be sure to sign up for our email newsletter. If you enjoyed this program, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Until next time, keep writing. And remember, do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone.